Welcome back to another FPL video. Today I'll be talking about the transfer tips for Game Week 8 and highlighting 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. If there are any other players you want to discuss, leave them in the comment section down below and engage with the rest of the community. There are also links to my Twitter and Instagram where you can continue the conversation, the Discord server, and there are YouTube channel memberships and the Patreon. All of that is in the description below, the FPL League as well. But what you can see on screen is Draft Hound, and it's a sneak preview towards my team selection video, which will also be out very soon, and the deadline stream on Saturday. So subscribe to the channel and don't miss a single upload or live stream. I'd very much encourage you to do so. But let's get straight into this video and talking about the players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Like many of you watching, I made the fatal error of selling Ollie Watkins for Julian Alvarez in Game Week 6, and since then Ollie Watkins has scored all 4 of his Premier League goals in arguably 2 of his toughest fixtures of the season, with the exception of Game Week 1 of course, against Newcastle away. But Ollie Watkins has been very frustrating. He was very consistent even in the first 5 game weeks of the season, but he was only able to provide assists, and now he's got 4 goals and 6 assists overall. His ownership is just shy of 24%. But by the time this video is published, it probably will be much higher than that. And he is now at 8 million again. His next 5 fixtures are really good. But fixtures like Wolves away might be a bit deceptive. I would not be surprised if Ollie Watkins blanked there. And it could be a very tight game between Aston Villa and Wolves, that local derby. But I'm looking at fixtures like Luton Town at home and Fulham at home. And that's where Watkins and other Aston Villa assets can come into a league of their own. He's had 7 big chances and he's got 54 FPL points. So he has shot right up in the FPL rankings. A few other stats that are worth mentioning are 21 shots inside the box and an XG of 2.98. So some very good underlying numbers, but there is a degree of overperformance so far, especially in the last 2 game weeks. But over the next 5, I think Watkins is arguably the best forward to have in the game. And if you can, whether you're on a wild card, using free transfers, I think Ollie Watkins should be one of your purchases in the next 5 game weeks. He might not be flagged in FPL just yet, but Heung-min Son is a bit of an injury concern heading into Luton Town away. He hasn't been in full training, and there are some people who think he should be rested, especially Tottenham Hotspur fans. But Spurs have some other injury problems creeping up now, like Perisic having an ACL injury. You've also got Solomon, who could be out for a few months, and Brennan Johnson is likely to miss Game Week 8 and return for Game Week 9. I think Heung-min Son and Maddison, who both have a few injury problems in the last few weeks, I think both of them will start, but there is a bit of a concern there, and Heung-min Son was subbed out early against Liverpool before their late winner because of these injury problems he has been sustaining over the last couple of weeks. His ownership is around 25%. He has scored 6 goals, provided 0 assists, but he's got some decent underlying numbers for creativity. His XGI is 4.27 and he's got 51 FPL points so far, and the next 5 games look fantastic for Heung-min Son and Tottenham Hotspur, but it's mainly the next 2 where I would recommend a double or triple up in Tottenham Hotspur. After that, you could make a case of trimming them down and selling Son to Saka if you decide to go about Saka for the next couple of weeks. But I think Heung-min Son is a very good short-term buy, and over the next 5, he can still do well, tick along nicely, and he's ultimately a fixture-proof player because he's returning 3 games this season, and 2 of them were against Arsenal and Liverpool, the other being Burnley, where he scored a hat-trick. So Heung-min Son can do it against absolutely anybody. He's also got 6 big chances and 3 big chances created, 11 key passes. So I think the creativity will also pay dividends. He will get a couple of assists, but more so than not, he will score more goals playing down the middle, and I just don't see anyone else taking a spot. The final buy of this video is Darwin Núñez, and he is a bit of a risky pick. It's more of a short-term punt because there is an international break after Game Week 8, and Darwin Núñez will be travelling to Uruguay and South America, and just a few days later they will play Everton at home, and that's where he's most at risk of not playing because Jota will be back by then, and let's see what happens with Cody Gakpo, who could be out for a couple of weeks, but it's just a bit of a risky pick, this one. I still think it's worth it, and he will start 2 of the next 3, almost certainly against Brighton away and possibly against Nottingham Forest at home in Game Week 10. His ownership is around 12.5%. He scored 3 goals this season, provided 2 assists. He's had 8 big chances already and 28 FPL points, which is very impressive considering his minutes haven't been that great, and that will always be an issue in the long term, especially when Gakpo and Jota are available. I think the 2 best forwards in the game besides Haaland are Watkins and Alvarez, but after that you could make a case for Darwin Núñez, especially over the next 4 game weeks, but he is definitely a short-term buy and he's not someone you can rely on in the long term. Bukayo Saka has been a constant injury doubt in the last couple of weeks against Bournemouth and Tottenham in the Premier League and against Lens in the Champions League, where he was subbed out around 30 minutes, just a couple of minutes after getting an assist. And he is a major doubt for this weekend's clash against Manchester City. He's got a minor strain in his hamstring, but there is still a possibility he plays in that crucial match. Then you've got the international break. He could possibly recover. And then you've got Chelsea away, Sheffield United at home, Newcastle away, and Burnley at home. So the long-term fixtures are still fairly decent for Arsenal, but the next one is as tough as you can get against Manchester City, who will have the likes of John Stones and Bernardo Silva back. But I think Saka is still worth holding, and unless you're on a wild card, I still think it's worth holding on to Bukayo Saka in the long term, and I still think he's going to play against Manchester City. But of course, let's see what the updates are, if we get any official news or information from Mikel Arteta. His ownership is still around 57%. He's got 4 goals and 3 assists this season. He has been involved in the vast majority of goals for Arsenal. His XGI is 6.44. These are some incredible numbers, and he's got 53 FPL points. Some other key stats that really stand out include 6 big chances, 3 big chances created, 19 key passes, and 14 shots inside the box. So Saka ticks every single box really, and I think he's a great FPL option, possibly the best midfielder pound for pound in FPL this season. And in the short term at least, you can go for Heung-min Son, and then in Game Week 10 when Son plays Crystal Palace away, and if Saka is available by that time, which I think he will be, then you have Saka against Sheffield United at home, and you can make that switch. But in the short term, you can go without him, of course, especially in the next 2, but I personally would hold if you're not using the wild card. Game Week 8 is also littered with injuries and doubts, and Diaby is one of them. He will miss the Conference League game on Thursday, and after the matches conclude, we should get more conclusive updates by Unai Emery. But Diaby is 6.7 million. His ownership is around 13%, and he's got 2 goals and 4 assists this season, with one of the best set of fixtures over the next 5 you will see in a long time. He's had 18 shots already and 40 FPL points, so a very impressive start to life in the Premier League, and he was also very impressive from his time at Bayer Leverkusen, and his underlying numbers in general are fairly decent for such a cheap midfielder. 2 big chances and 4 big chances created, so I think his assists are definitely under the radar, but we're all expecting him to get more goals, especially over the next 5 with fixtures like Luton Town at home coming up. But I think Diaby is still worth holding on to, and if he is cleared and he's fully available, and we know this heading into the deadline, he would actually move from a hold to a buy. Julian Alvarez is not just one of the most informed players in the Premier League, but also across world football. He scored and assisted against Leipzig in the Champions League when Man City really needed it. At 1-1, things were looking tough in the second half, and Alvarez has just been Man City's best player in recent weeks. The next 5 fixtures look poor, and even up until Game Week 16, and Arsenal and Man United away don't look particularly good, but Brighton at home, Bournemouth at home, and even Chelsea away look like fairly decent fixtures for Haaland, Alvarez, and any other City players you may have, but the 2 best from the citizens are Haaland and Alvarez without a shadow of a doubt, and you could even possibly cover Haaland with Alvarez, which could allow you to go for Salah on your wildcard. I discussed this in the best wildcard team video and also in the upcoming team selection where I've activated my wildcard myself, and Alvarez is a serious consideration. You could also go for a front 3, and for me the 3 best forwards, as I said earlier, are Alvarez, Watkins and Erling Haaland. Alvarez is currently at 7 million. His ownership is also approximately 32%. He's got 3 goals and 5 FPL assists with 19 key passes and 46 FPL points overall. So good underlying numbers for both goal scoring and creativity, but the amount of chances he creates is actually really impressive, and he is filling that Kevin De Bruyne role extremely well. He's got 12 shots inside the box as well, 2.64 XG, and everything just points towards returns, and Alvarez is a clinical finisher. So despite only having 3 big chances and also 10 shots on target, Alvarez will still get plenty of goals and assists and do very well despite the tough fixtures. Admittedly, this is a very tricky one, and that's why Estupiñán is kind of a hybrid. He is a sell in some cases and a hold in others. So the latest updates we got from the Zerbi is that he'll be out for a month. But remember, We have an international break after game week 8, so that isn't a big concern. And Estupiñán could be available for game week 10 when the fixtures turn and he faces Fulham at home. If not, he probably will be available for game week 11 against Everton away. And the games look pretty good up until game week 16. So with Estupiñán, it ultimately depends on your situation. I think he's a sell on the wild card, and you can go with other defenders to boost your squad depth just in case you need it. But maybe with normal transfers, if you have other fish to fry, or you've got a really good 50-man squad that you're happy with, you could make a case for holding him, bench him against Liverpool, Man City, possibly Fulham if he misses that out as well, and then bringing him back into your starting 11 because he is a very good long-term option. And ideally, he would have been in my wildcard squad and I would have benched him in the next two and then reintroduced him against Fulham at home. So it ultimately depends, of course, but it looks like he'll miss out against Marseille on Thursday, also against Liverpool at home this weekend, and then you're expecting him to miss out on Man City after the international break, and of course you'll miss the games for Ecuador as well in the process. But I would look at Fulham at home or Everton away as a potential return date for Pervis Estupiñán, and that 1 month injury doesn't look as bad as it would seem on paper. His ownership is also around 57% like Bukayo Saka. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists. 2 big chances for a left back is really impressive. He should have scored against Aston Villa, and that -2 point return was ultimately very disappointing. He will go down in price eventually to 5.2 million, especially with this injury news, and he's only got 25 FPL points at the moment, so I think he is a sell in most cases. But if you're one of the few with a very good 50-man squad you're happy with, or maybe, for example, you just want to look at other fires to put out and Estupiñán isn't a big priority, in those sort of scenarios you could hold him. But ultimately, for most people who will have a lot of issues, and Estupiñán, you could move him on to Trippier, or you can move him on to Matty Cash, and you're missing out on some key assets, even Pedro Porro or a Doggy, I would sell Estupiñán to one of those defenders to bolster your defence. The final sell of this video is Marcus Rashford. Typically in these videos, I recommend holding him, but I just can't bring myself to do that. Despite facing Sheffield United away very soon, and you've got other plum fixtures like Fulham away and Luton Town at home, Rashford just isn't in form. He's only got 1 goal this season in 7 appearances and 2 assists. He also provided an assist in the Champions League against Galatasaray for Rasmus Højlund's opening goal, but I just don't think it's enough. And with Man United attackers, I've lost all patience, even with Bruno Fernandes, who is still a decent option. Højlund could definitely be on the radar as well with his Champions League form. I just don't think Rashford justifies that 8.8 million price tag, especially when you can move to Heung-min Son, Bukayo Saka in the long term, Mitoma, Pedro Neto, Bowen, James Ward-Prowse, James Maddison. There are so many good midfielders at the moment with better fixtures, or if not better fixtures, they've got a similar level of games. They're playing in better teams at the moment, and United just aren't clicking at this moment in time. I don't think Brentford at home is a bad fixture considering their form, but Man City at home is coming up very soon. Rashford scored or did very well last season. He's got a good record against them in general, but I just don't think it's worth keeping Rashford at this moment in time. And if you still have double United attack, you just have to sell him at this point. And I know you can look at fixtures and maybe still fairly confident you might be about them returning to form, but I just don't see it at the moment, and there is no pattern of play, and Rashford really is struggling this season. His XGI is 3.75, he's got 26 FPL points, so he's not a horrific FPL option. He will get goals eventually down the line, especially in fixtures like Sheffield United away, but I just think he's a sell. There are much better options elsewhere. Man United assets are simply not worth the hassle despite the good upcoming fixtures, and I would avoid the Red Devils completely right now. The famous old skip section, Gabriel Jesus is one of them. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist in the Premier League so far this season and 2 goals in the Champions League. I've always seen a lot of people in the live chats ask me, should I go for Gabriel Jesus? And maybe I'd consider him in UCL fantasy, but in FPL, I just wouldn't go there. The fixtures, like I said, for Arsenal aren't particularly bad in the long term, but facing Man City at home and Chelsea away next, and you look at Bukayo Saka and other Arsenal assets like Martin Odegaard, I think they're a level above Gabriel Jesus, who can be decent in short bursts, but I never really back him as a long-term option. And when you've got Watkins, Alvarez, Haaland, even Awani and other good strikers who offer better value for money, I just don't think Gabriel Jesus is worth it, and he can sometimes be benched or play on the left-hand side United, and his goal threat will be minimized even further. His XG is 1.42 and he's got 15 FPL points. He hasn't played that many minutes because he came back from injury against Man United as a substitute and scoring there, but ever since he hasn't really come close to scoring, and his finishing can be very erratic. Even against Tottenham, where he pressed Maddison into a mistake, he's right in front of the goal and he completely misses the target. So you can't rely on Gabriel Jesus as a finisher. I think he's a quality player, one of the best dribblers in the league, but as an FPL asset, I just don't think he's good enough. Only 6 shots in the box in 5 appearances, 6 shots overall, and 3 shots on target. 2 big chances. He's going to need a lot more in order to get those goals and FPL points. So ultimately, Gabriel Jesus is a skip. The final player covered in this video is Almiron, who scored in the Champions League, Newcastle's first goal back in the competition as they destroyed PSG 4-1, but I'm still not too convinced about Almiron, and in the long term I'd rather go for Gordon once he's back from suspension in Game Week 9. I think he offers better value for money. The only issue with Gordon is that he gets yellow cards every single game basically. He got another one against PSG as well, but for Newcastle you really want to target the defence. With Isak and Wilson you're always going to get rotation, and you've got Nick Pope in goal, who's a decent option, but when you've got Trippier, Botman when he's back, and Dan Burn, those are the 3 you really want to target. You can even go for a triple up defensively, especially off the back of 4 clean sheets in a row and only conceding once to PSG once they took their foot off the gas and already had the game won basically. But I think with Newcastle, ultimately what you want to do is double up on them defensively and maybe go for a Gordon in the midfield. You can go for Almiron if you really feel it. He had a really good purple patch last season, but I just don't trust him in the long term. And even assets like Neto catch my eye more so than Almiron, who of course is in good form, you can't deny it. He's got 2 goals this season, 13 shots and 26 FPL points overall, which is more than the likes of Estupiñán. But despite the great fixtures, Almiron's great form, I would still skip him and go elsewhere in the Newcastle attack, even with Wilson or Isak, who are going to be constant rotation headaches in the future. So that's it. We've covered 10 players in this video. Let me know if you disagree with any of the selections. Would you class Almiron as a buy, or would you maybe class someone like Estupiñán as a hold? Like I said, some of these are definitely circumstantial and it depends on your specific circumstances, but ultimately I'm quite confident with the classification of these 10 players. But of course, it's always good to have different opinions, and football and FPL is definitely a game of different perspectives. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 21,000 subscribers and beyond. We're around 100 subscribers away from that milestone. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also check all the other links in the description below for the Patreon and channel memberships to get exclusive early access to my videos, access to all my team reveals as well, being featured on the front page of my channel, and exclusive badges and emojis to use in all my live streams and videos. There's also the Discord server and the FPL League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 8 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.